G'day mates, I'm Flinty, and this week I bring to you a compendium of all of my Friday the 13th facts over the last year. So happy Halloween and enjoy, mates. 10 facts about the commercially viable horror movie Friday the 13th, which was made around 1980. So without any mucking around, let's move on to the facts to find out some stuff about it which you didn't even know. Fact number 1. So we all know that the antagonist in the movie Friday the 13th is Pamela Voorhees, but did you know that originally the plan was that the antagonist, their name would be Sarame Leakim? But unfortunately, there was a bit of an uproar when John Carpenter claimed that the name Sarame Leakim was actually Michael Myers backwards. I don't see it myself, but some people say it's true. It's a shame because that name was really good. But anyway, the name Pamela Voorhees was used. On to fact 2. Friday the 13th was written by a writer, Victor Miller. Victor Miller wrote the story of Friday the 13th, which became the movie that we now know as Friday the 13th. He put pen to paper and wrote it, and that's what we've got now. So Friday the 13th was always based on a story. 3. Fact number 3 that you didn't even know. Not every murder in the movie involves a killing. Some of the movie's murders involve the killer murdering the film's counsellors, but not all of the murders actually include a killing at all of the person who is the character. As you can see, some of the counsellors in the movie are simply murdered without anything else going on at all. Fact number 4 about Friday the 13th, the film. Even though Friday the 13th was completed in the year 1980, it was actually released in 1983, after both parts 2 and 3 had come out, because of a dangerous scene involving a killer blade. Lots of the audiences were confused, as you could imagine, because of the films coming out in the wrong order at the cinema, but as we know, the films can now be looked back at in the correct order. Bravo, Friday the 13th. Fact number 5. Did you even know that Friday the 13th and the James Bond movie Goldfinger were both released on the same day, sparking the ongoing Jason vs Bond wars that would ignite the silver screen for years? Fact number 6 about Friday the 13th. The character of Alice was to be sponsored by McDonald's. Her official character name was Alice McNuggets as part of a lucrative advertising campaign. 7. On to fact number 7 about Friday the 13th. Let's learn about the original film title. Did you know that Friday the 13th wasn't the first choice for the name of the movie? There was 3 previous names which were selected but eventually turned down. First of all, it was to be called Peach Camp, secondly, Village Man, and finally, Soggy Stabber. But at the end they decided to go with the name that we all like and all agree with. It's called Friday the 13th now. 8. On to fact number 8. Crazy Ralph was such a popular character that the actor Walt Gorney was approached to play John McClane in the Die Hard movie. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it to the auditions because of having to record Friday the 13th Part 2, which he had already signed on to. But just think what might have happened if Walt Gorney, aka Crazy Ralph, had made it into Die Hard as John McClane. I think we'd have a better movie on our hands, mates. 9. On to fact number 9 about Friday the 13th, the movie that you didn't even know. Now, one of the actors were rumoured to have lost something on set while filming the movie, but luckily, thank God, it was found at the end of the week's shooting schedule and he managed to leave with his missing item. Thank goodness he found it.
10.
Fact 10 about Friday the 13th. I hope this isn't too scary for you guys. Even though the movie is called Friday the 13th, a lot of the movie was actually filmed on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and sometimes over the weekend, depending on the shooting schedule and the weather. Well, thank you ever so much for watching my very interesting facts about the Friday the 13th movie. Friday the 13th Part 2 has its own share of scares, I could tell you. It's well regarded as being the scariest movie of all time, so why don't you sit back and I'll see if I can find out some facts about it that you didn't even know. I'm Flinty, let's take a peek.
1.
Fact number 1. One actress in the movie had so many scenes in or around the lake that after the movie she spent more and more time with water, and she eventually changed her name to Ocean Master in 1986. Fact number 2 about Friday the 13th Part 2 that you didn't even know. When the movie was being edited in 1981, prior to its cinematic release, the editors accidentally put in a scene from Friday the 13th Part 7, which wouldn't be released for several years. Fact number 3. The location of filming, Camp Stingray in New Jersey, is famous for its lack of air in the area. Several times during the filming, actors would pass out and need to be taken to a more airy area. They come back later and try it again.
4.
And now on to fact 4 about Friday the 13th that you didn't even know. Lots of people say that Friday the 13th Part 2 is the first part in the series, but it's not. It's actually the second in the scary series of horror films, Friday the 13th.
5.
Fact 5. In the famous campfire scene, we can see 2 windows in the cabin in the background. If you look carefully, you can see that the window on the left is further from the lamps than the window on the right. Could this be an ominous omen of the trouble yet to come?
6.
Fact 6 about Friday the 13th, Part 2. One of the actors what did portray Jason in the film was born without any ears at all. But the role of Jason was one that needed ears. He was to be an eared killer. To cover this earless disability, the actor wore a special head sack on top of his head and around it too.
7.
Fact 7 that you didn't even know. Actress Adrienne King had changed her old surname of Purdue to King to commemorate the King of Drumming, as she called him, Marky Ramone.
8.
Fact number 8 about Friday the 13th Part 2. Rumours persist of a real hooded maniac stalking the area during the filming process. This was simply the character of Jason Voorhees that was in the film.
9.
Fact 9 that you didn't even know. The actor who played the wheelchair-bound Mark in Friday the 13th Part 2 would go on to play Patrick Swayze in several hit movies, from Dirty Dancing to Ghost. Well done, Mark.
10.
And Part 10 that you didn't even know about Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, did you know that the original plan for Jason Voorhees was for him to have lightning powers in the film, zapping his poor victims with his electrical element? But it was changed at the last minute to having a garden fork instead. This was because the special effects needed for the electrical zaps was a little bit too much for this poor film production company to handle. Well, thanks ever so much for listening to my very interesting facts about Friday the 13th Part 2.
1.
The makers of the movie wanted to distance themselves from the Friday the 13th series, while actually still being part of the Friday the 13th series. So originally it wasn't even called Friday the 13th Part 3, the original movie name was The Masked Baddie. But as you can see, they finally went with the name Friday the 13th Part 3. On to fact 2 that you didn't even know. Before acclaimed movie star Richard Brooker was cast as Jason Voorhees, others who auditioned for the role included Steve Buscemi, Richard Pryor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even the musician Marky Ramone.
3.
Fact number 3 that you didn't even know. An entire side story was cut from the movie due to it having to have a 90-minute run time. These 15 minutes of cut scenes show Jason Voorhees selling drugs to local youths. I think the scenes are on YouTube or maybe on the internet highway somewhere. I wonder what they're like. Fact number 4 about Friday the 13th Part 3 that you didn't even know. The original plan, according to early scripts, was not for Jason to wear a mask, but rather for him to wear several necklaces, as the character Mr. T was making the gold chain look really popular in the A-Team at the time. But as you know, they didn't go with the chain look, they went with the mask look. Number 5. Did you even know that not a single compact disc appears in Friday the 13th Part 3? That's because the movie came out 3 years before CDs became an affordable new technology.
6.
Fact number 6 about Friday the 13th Part 3. The very good actor playing Jason in Friday the 13th Part 3, Richard Brooker, was actually born with 3 arms. As the role of Jason only required 2 arms, he was asked to tuck in the extra left arm. He does this so well that it's barely visible in the film.
7.
Fact number 7 about Friday the 13th Part 3 that you didn't even know. When the soundtrack was released in 1983 on record and on tape formats, a mistake was made and the theme tune to 1978's Halloween was included as track 5. When questioned, the manager at Universal Music famously shrugged and said, "It's all the same thing, isn't it?"
8.
Fact number 8. During the lunch breaks while filming, most of the main actors would get together and trade porno magazines and then read them together out in one of their cabins. You could say that working on Friday the 13th movies is a hard job.
9.
Fact number 9 that you didn't even know. The entire movie was filmed over the Easter weekend in 1982, and that's exactly why nearly every scene in the cabin features Easter eggs in the background.
10.
And finally, fact number 10 that you didn't even know about Friday the 13th Part 3. I hope this fact isn't a little bit too scary for you. Nevertheless, let's find out. Jason's mask straps weren't strong enough for the actor's head, and so it was attached to his face with super glue. It was smeared all over the actor's face, and it took 3 weeks after filming for the actor to finally be removed from the mask, alongside portions of his own fleshy face.
And amazing facts that you didn't even know about Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. Let's dive in and see what scary things we can find.
1.
During the acting in the movie, there were lots of girls and boys teaming up together, having dates in the house area and dancing together. This friendly bunch was so attracted to each other that uncontrolled ejaculations became the norm over time. The compacties on the ground and the compacties on the furniture became commonplace, and the set designer had to hire someone to unjizz the whole house after and during the filming using a special cleaning solution. Fact number 2 that you didn't even know. Now, one of the very good stuntmen used during the filming of the movie was heavily pulsing with AIDS. In the dangerous scene, he cut his shoulder in 3 and sent his AIDS blood flying into the mouths of the actors and crew. Luckily, no actors caught the virus, not that they'd admit anyway, and you have to remember this was before AIDS became the popular and trendy condition for the rich and famous that it is today. Back then, it was frowned upon.
3.
Fact number 3 about Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Have you ever looked at the holes in the hockey mask and wondered if they were used to inject heroin directly into the actor's face? Well, that's precisely what happened here. A caterer was setting up the day's lunchtime snacks for the actors, and he found one of the Jason stuntmen injecting his face with heroin directly through one of the holes in the masks. Let's just say that he couldn't mask his addiction anymore after this turn of events.
4.
Fact number 4. We all know that legendary thespian Ted White played the role of Jason in Friday the 13th Part 4, but did you know that another Hollywood star originally played the role? Rick Moranis had filmed most of his scenes as Jason in the movie when he became unable to complete the work because he was obsessing over a broken barbecue machine at his home. He was replaced by Ted White and wasn't ever asked to come back for any of the sequel movies.
5.
On to fact number 5. Did you ever watch Friday the 13th Part 4 and wonder why all of the actors look like they're under the threat of a beating at any given time? That's because at the time of the filming, the actors were under the threat of a beating at any given time. The local mob, a gang called the Woodland Wolves, were extorting the actors and threatening every visitor to the area.
6.
Fact number 6. Actor Ted White, what did Jason, at first was hesitant to cut off his glorious long black hair. He argued that his acting skills should be the most important aspect, and it didn't matter if Jason had long black hair for the film. He even refused a bonus of $5,000 to cut off his long hair, so the film crew had to hold him down out in the woods while one of the producers climbed on top of him and cut off the hair. That's why if you look closely at the Jason character in the movie, he actually has no hair.
7.
Fact number 7 that you didn't even know. Friday the 13th Part 4 has a very generic Friday the 13th soundtrack by the musician Harry Manfredini, which was barely different from the soundtrack to Friday the 13th Part 2. But did you know that originally the Beatles were commissioned to come up with a theme song for the film? Over $1 million was spent on the development of this mighty song, but it never came to pass because members of the Beatles band couldn't stop coming to blows.
8.
Fact number 8 that you didn't even know. Despite the popularity of the food, cheese, in 1984, the word cheese isn't used even once in the film's entire dialogue. That's why if you listen to the words spoken in the movie, you'll not hear the word cheese.
9.
On to fact number 9 about Friday the 13th. Much of part 3 is set around a barn area in the local area of Crystal Lake. Unfortunately, the barn was chock full of pond farts when they tried to film part 4, so they gave up on the barn area and moved production to cabins instead. Actor Corey Feldman uttered on more than one occasion that the worst thing about making the movie was those damn pond farts.
10.
And finally, fact 10 about the final chapter that you didn't even know. The first draft of the script had the title Jason Takes Chicago, a story whereby Jason ends up in the city of Chicago where he follows around some escaped teenagers. But instead, that didn't even happen. Instead of being set in Chicago where he follows around some escaped teenagers, it's set in a unique destination of Crystal Lake.
10 facts about Friday the 13th, part 5, that you didn't even know. So grab onto your hats, this one's gonna be a little bit frightening, and let's start to find out some stuff about Friday the 13th. Part 5,
1.
on to fact 1. Now, one of the actors in the film plays a character called Reggie, who ends up being one of the film's heroes. But did you know, originally the character of Reggie was going to be played by a young Morgan Freeman. Unfortunately, talks between Morgan Freeman and the film's producers fell through when Morgan Freeman kept demanding that he be completely nude from the waist down for all of his scenes, but unfortunately that just didn't suit the film. Fact number 2, that you didn't even know. Now, did you know that Friday the 13th Part 5 is not only one of the Friday the 13th movies, but it actually was going to have its own name separate from that of the Friday the 13th movies of what it is Part 5 of. The movie was originally going to be called The Capulets, all because that was something in the film, but it got changed at the last minute, and now we're left with a film that's always going to be called Friday the 13th Part 5 and not The Capulets.
3.
And now on to fact 3. Now we know that Friday the 13th Part 5 is actually a 2D film, unlike Part 3 that was filmed in 3D. But one of the original plans for Friday the 13th Part 5 was for it to be a revolutionary one-dimensional film. It was going to be filmed on 1D cameras to give it that kind of special look that'd be remembered through time. But once again, you never know what's going to happen between the scenes, and plans change. So unfortunately, we're left with Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, being a 2D film.
4.
And now on to fact 4, that you didn't even know. Now, did you know that in Friday the 13th Part 1, 2, 3 and all the way up to Part 4, you don't see Jason Voorhees doing his favourite breaststroke or butterfly stroke. You don't see him swim at all in those films. But in Friday the 13th Part 5, all of this changes. That's because in this film, this is where we see Jason have a long swim for the first and only time in all of the storied Friday the 13th movies. So if you haven't seen this film and you really want to see Jason having a dip, why don't you go and watch Part 5?
5.
On to fact number 5 about Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. Now, the character of Pam in the film is played by a very nice actress, but you might be thinking you don't really recognise her from anywhere else. Now let me tell you, that could have been different, because there was 2 other actresses that applied for that role, but unfortunately they didn't get the job. Those 2 actresses are Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey, but unfortunately they just didn't get the role. And now we move on to fact number 6 about Friday the 13th Part 5 that you didn't even know. Now there's a scene in the movie where the guy is going to the loo after he's eaten a damn spicy enchilada and he's being attacked on the toilet by Jason Voorhees from the outside of the toilet unit. Originally this scene was going to be filmed from inside the toilet, giving an original perspective on the scene as you see runny shit running from the man's anus down into the toilet pan, mixing with the water as Jason is banging and thrashing on the walls. But unfortunately this was deemed too expensive for the film crew, and unfortunately it was filmed from the side like a normal film scene. That's a shame.
7.
Now on to fact number 7 about the movie. Rumours persist that the actor who played Jason Voorhees in this film wouldn't stop leaving his compatches all over the place. He was well known amongst the actors and crew as the ejaculator, as he just couldn't keep himself to himself, leaving messes everywhere. And even when he left a big compatch somewhere on some of the floor, or maybe on some of the furniture, he refused to clean up the mess. That's why he wasn't asked to come back for Friday the 13th Part 6. It's all because of his compatches.
8.
And now, on to Friday the 13th Part 5, fact number 8. Now, as you know, doves are well known as being the birds that symbolise peace. But there's no doves in this film. You're probably wondering why at this stage. Why the heck is there no doves in this film? Well, it's because this film is full of hectic mayhem, and doves, being the birds of peace, unfortunately do not represent hectic nor mayhem. So there's no doves here in this film.
9.
Fact number 9 that you didn't even know. The biggest problem that they had while filming Friday the 13th Part 5 was that they were being besieged by the tiny turtles known as terrapins. The terrapins kept showing up all over the place. They were biting people, nipping their hands, climbing under the doors, getting in people's pockets, ruining the general scenes. Now, if you look carefully in some of the scenes, you might be able to see a terrapin or 2 somewhere in the shot. To start off with, they were trying to save all of the little turtles, putting them in little pans and sometimes cages, but in the end they just ended up stamping on them, making a little turtle mess all over the floor. They didn't give a damn about the turtles no more. I could say that this ended up making the film a terror pin.
10.
And finally on to fact 10 that you didn't even know. Another problem that they had during the filming of the film was that sometimes all of the actors would be on set, all of the producers would be where they're supposed to be, but where's the director? He's out in a shack drinking some paint. Unfortunately for everyone, the man who they chose to be director of Friday the 13th Part 5 enjoyed a mouthful of paint every now and then. He didn't give a damn if it was pink paint or yellow paint. If it was paint, it'd be in his damn gob. Sometimes he'd come onto the set with a trickle of paint dripping out of the corner of his mouth. But people knew what he'd been doing. He'd been drinking paint. They just wanted rid of him in the end, but unfortunately he was contracted and so he had to finish. Thanks very much for listening to my very good facts about Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. Thanks ever so much for watching my very good video of 50 Friday the 13th Facts. And as a thanks, Here's a bonus fact for you. Did you know that in Friday the 13th Part 3, during the scene with the popcorn, one of the pieces of popcorn accidentally gets stuck in the hippie's eye, and it's still there to this day. It's now tiny and black and hard, but it's still lodged in his eye. He can barely see a thing.